Okay, so let's get into variables. So in any programming language, you're going to want to save values of certain things, and you're going to do that in a variable. Now, Java is very strict in what you can store in different types of variables. So let's get into first the types of variables that you can use in Java. And I'm going to go through the basic ones at first, and I'm going to show you how to declare a variable. So let's say we were in our Hello World program, right? And instead of just printing Hello World, I was going to actually declare some variables at the top. So let's go for common variables first. Let's say I wanted to store a number that like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's considered an integer. And the way you declare an integer is you just say, int to define that it's an integer. And then you give the variable a name. Maybe I'm going to store an age of a person. And this line on its own is the declaration of a variable. The variable name is age, and the variable type is int. Let's say I was going to store the amount of money. Well, money is not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like $1.25, $1.26. That would be considered a floating point number. And a floating point variable is defined as float. And again, the name of the variable is money. I could put whatever I want for the name of the variable. So int is a very common variable to use in initial programming. Float is a very common variable to use in programming. Another one for larger floating point numbers that is common to use is double, big money. So when your numbers get really, really large, maybe money isn't a good example unless we're talking about the debt of our country, right? You could declare a variable double, and it'll even hold bigger floating point numbers, right? And then some of the other common ones you might use is, let's say you wanted to store one letter, right? Like A or B or C. That would be considered a character or a char, right? And I could call my variable letter, for instance, right? And what else might be common that you might want to use? Another one would be a Boolean. A Boolean is something that is either true or it's false, right? And sometimes in programming, it's useful to know if something is, like for instance, is our program done? Yes or no, right? Do you want to continue? I do want to or I don't want to. Booleans only hold two values, true or false. The way you declare those is you say Boolean, Boolean, and maybe my variable will be called done, right? Okay, now these lines are declarations of variables. That's all they're doing. They're declaring these variables that could be used later. Now Eclipse is giving me these warnings over here. And what it's saying is, hey, you declared a variable called age, but look in your program here. Look, you never used age. And it's saying, are you sure you need this? Because it's not good to just declare variables and never use them, right? So Eclipse is saying right over here, it's going to say the value of local variable age is not used. And that's a convoluted way of saying, hey, you declared this variable age, and then look, down through your whole code, you never used it, right? Okay, which is normal because I'm declaring it first and then I'm going to use it later, right? Okay. So that's how we declare variables. Now, when we want to use a variable, we use an assignment statement, right? An assignment statement is saying, I want to put a value into the variable called age. And the way I do that is I say age equals, and I could give it a value 10 or 10, right? Okay. So let's see what this statement actually does. It says, this is different than math, right? Math in an equation is slightly different than this. An assignment statement in a programming language says, take whatever's on the right-hand side of the equal sign, the 10, and put it into the variable called age, right? So after this line executes, age, the variable age, now has a value of 10, right? And same here. If I wanted to put a value into money, I could say money equals, or let's put it into big money. Big money equals, $32.87, right? And now I've taken the value 32.87 and I've put it into big money. Same for the variable called letter, which is a char. Letter equals, A. And the way we put characters is we use a single quote around it. And the last one, Boolean, right? Booleans, I mentioned before, can hold two values. The values can be true or false, right? So I could put, done equals true, like that, right? And now done equals true. And now done, after this line is executed, holds the value true. So up here, these are variable declarations. And down here, these are variable assignments. Now, it is possible to combine variable declarations and assignments in the same statement. So I could say something like int, number equals 10. Now, this statement does two things at once. It declares a variable of type integer, and it assigns the value 10 in all at the same time. Now, there's no better or worse way of doing it. It's not wrong to declare it here and then set it here. It's also not wrong to declare it here and set it and assign it in the same statement. It depends on what you're doing to determine whether that's right or wrong. Now, the final type of variable that I want to talk about is a string, because it's very common. And we declare a string variable by giving its type, which is string, and let's say it's the person's name, right? And we say string name. So now I have a variable called name, and it's of type string. Now, notice, this is important. When I declared int, float, double, char, boolean, they all started with lowercase characters. That's because these are native types in Java. Integer is a native type, float is a native type, double is a native type. String, however, is not a native type. It was actually built on the char type. So somebody actually wrote string after these native types in Java were done. That's why even in Eclipse, this is bold and purple, and the string is not bold and purple, right? So that's the reason why string is the variable type that does not start with lowercase, because it's not native in Java. Okay. Now, how do I assign a string variable? Same way, right? I say name equals. Now, chars, or characters that hold one letter, use single quotes. Strings hold many characters. It could hold one character, but it could hold more. So, name equals Professor Kula, right? And now I have this, after this line is executed, I now have stored this string into the variable name. So this is just a brief explanation of how you declare variables and how you assign values into variables.